Okay, shut up, you guys. I want to talk to you about Nosferatu. Gang, we gotta start believing women. You can only see half of Byron's face today. He's being a very mysterious, hellish little demon monster. Nosferatu, why don't you come to your senses? Nosferatu is the newest film by Robert Eggers, director of all your favorite creepy movies of the modern day, and is a remake of the 1922 film of the same name, while also taking inspiration from the original novel Dracula and its many adaptations over the years. You may ask yourself, what is the difference between a Dracula and a Nosferatu? And the answer to that question requires understanding of everything from Romanian folklore to silent film era copyright. But from a practical standpoint, what you really got to know is the less likely you are to want to hit it, the more likely it is to be a Nosferatu instead of a Dracula. Unfortunately, the conflict of this film is that Nosferatu does still want to hit. This version of the film centers around a protagonist who has been both plagued and enlightened by spiritual forces that give her supernatural knowledge about what is and what will be. But this hero does have one fatal flaw, and it is that she is a woman. So, of course, nothing she says can be taken as true or reasonable. This entire script consists of moment after moment of other characters dismissing the truth that she presents, to the point where it's almost like a fun new Bechdel test. How many conversations in this film don't involve someone blowing off Ellen's reality in some way? The first one I can think of is the Romanian musical number, which, despite this being quite a long movie, I believe they could have extended heavily. So today we're going to break down the plot to see how ridiculous and delusional these characters can get in their mission to not believe a woman, and maybe see how it compares to other horror movies with similar themes. I'm sorry, guys, this one is not a goofy one. I really wanted to watch this movie and write something silly like ranking movie vampires based on which is the best to be in a throuple with. But Count Orlok, he is not actually good to be in a throuple with. He's the kind of guy who acts super toxic, and then when you confront him, utilizes therapy speak to try and turn it around on you. If you don't want to be with me, I'm just going to kill all of your friends and family. That's not an ultimatum. That's just a boundary I'm setting for myself. So let's get into it. Spoilers ahead. We start off with our lead, Ellen, when she is still very young. We're not sure how young because she's still Lily Rose Depp, but younger. She's very upset, looking very poorly, as one might say, and in her despair, accidentally summons a hellish vampire spirit. It happens to the best of us. You misspeak a little bit while calling for spiritual guidance, and you end up with a demon. I'm pretty sure that was also the plot of the Jack Black Christmas movie that just came out. Now, we don't know this at the time, but this little oopsie is already the direct result of her being dismissed by men. You see, Ellen was born psychic, having advanced knowledge of, at first, little things like what she was going to get for Christmas, but then eventually predicted the death of her mother. And as she wrestled with these increasingly disturbing revelations, her dad was, of course, very understanding and cool. Just kidding, obviously he's a huge asshole about it. He labels her mentally unwell, basically washes his hands of her, and this is only compounded after her little accidental demon summoning when she's found naked and afraid outside. After that night, she does have a tendency to go full Linda Blair in the night, which of course is labeled as melancholy, lady stuff. Don't worry, though, because a man comes along to save her real soon. She marries Thomas, played by Nicholas Hoult, and apart from the occasional creepy dream, her melancholy subsides. However, when Thomas is told by his employer to go on a 6-week trip to Transylvania, she is filled with foreboding that something terrible will happen to him. And of course, those around her dismiss this as anxious fancy. Now, this seems reasonable enough, right? It's not like they could have known that some hellish monster had specifically arranged for Thomas to come to him because he's secretly his wife's abusive ex who wants her back. Except that Thomas is a German fancy boy who has been asked to trek alone through Eastern Europe in winter to a desolate land whose culture and language he has no knowledge of to complete a real estate deal. If your husband is given that task and you don't say, hey, that sounds terribly dangerous and entirely outside your job description, please don't go, then you did not love that man. You wanted him gone. And that is your prerogative. Imagine if on Modern Family, Phil Dunphy is asked to go show a house in some war-torn area on the other side of the world, and Claire is like, don't do that, you'll die, and everyone just treats her like some kind of nagging shrew. Actually, that sounds like exactly something that would happen on Modern Family. We have not evolved that much. So this client Thomas is meeting, Count Orlok, is indeed Ellen's abusive ex who wants her back. And in Thomas's time there, he drinks his blood, steals his shit, and has him sign a contract in a language he doesn't know, trying to act like that's legally binding. This isn't what this video is about, but I do have like a pet peeve for demons who do not get informed consent in their little demonic deals. Like, I get it, you're evil, but don't be all like, ha ha ha, I tricked you. When you didn't trick them, you just lied. It's kind of like saying, oh, I got this brilliant scam I'm gonna run, and then just holding someone up at gunpoint for their money. That ain't a scam. While back at home, Ellen is going through seizures, fits, sleepwalking, all that good stuff. So the friend couple Ellen's staying with and their doctor are of course like, aw dang, she be melancholic again. So they bring in Willem Dafoe. Dafoe is a brilliant but disgraced professor, and what's cool about him is he believes women. When Ellen says that she's not crazy, she's just possessed and worried that her husband is being eaten, he believes her. Unfortunately, no one believes the professor because despite being a man, he is also Swiss. Once I was in New Orleans and I met this guy from Austria and I happened to mention Switzerland and he said, Switzerland, this is a garbage country. Racism in Europe is just really hard to keep track of. Like in North America, it's not exactly black and white, but pretty damn close. In Europe, it's like, is this a cute rivalry you got going on, or is this actual systemic oppression? Did their country occupy yours for hundreds of years, or did you just lose to them at football? And the wild part is, most of the time, they care way more about the football. So Willem Dafoe believes women, but is Swiss. He's sitting there with Ellen, who's in a trance, and he's like, she is literally not here. Please watch while I stab this gigantic needle through her wrist, and she feels nothing because, again, this is not her lady brain playing tricks on her. This is a full spiritual episode. And everyone around them, especially Thomas's friend Friedrich, is just like, gross. Anyway, she probably just misses her husband. Girl is doing a full gymnastics routine on the bed, and he's just like, oh, ladies and their emotions. Thomas lands back in Germany around the same time as Count Orlok, and then things really go to hell. Orlok says he's going to kill everyone Ellen loves over 3 nights if she doesn't get with him, and her dear friend Anna, Friedrich's wife, falls super ill. Friedrich, of course, is immediately like, Ellen, you're clearly responsible for this, not in the way that you've been communicating you may be responsible for this, but just that you are like a woman whose thoughts differ from mine, so get out. And he kicks Ellen and Thomas out, and Orlok promptly murders his whole family. Not him, though, because Ellen doesn't care enough about him to be affected by his death, I guess. At the funeral for his wife and children, Friedrich goes after Ellen for causing all of this with her womanliness. And Thomas says, no, look, I've got these bite marks on my chest, and they're from a vampire. Ellen was telling the truth. And upon a man presenting this dude with the flimsiest of evidence, he immediately falls in line. I'm getting so annoyed talking about this. Let's talk about something else for a second. I hate Ellen's hair in this movie. Gen Z, why are you trying to bring back the middle part? I feel like with the middle part, I look like Critical Role's Matt Mercer. He's not an unattractive man, but it's not what we're going for. Unless Critical Role's Marisha Ray happens to be watching this, in which case you can confuse me for your husband anytime. So the men put together a plan, and then behind their back, the woman and the Swiss guy put together a much better plan. The guys go to stake Orlok and destroy his resting place because Defoe's discovered that's the only way to get him gone for good. Some nuns earlier on had told Thomas that the resting place was an important factor, but the thing about nuns is they are women. Meanwhile, Ellen calls Orlok to her and basically lets him hit it until the sun comes up, at which point they both promptly die. The movie ends with Defoe taking in Ellen's cat Greta because she is the only female character left alive. Now you might say, Nikki, your points are valid enough, thank y'all, but maybe, just maybe, your standards for feminist allyship are a little too high for a film that takes place in the 1830s. It's not like people in a film today could realistically ignore a woman to literal death the way they do here. Shut up, I want to talk to you guys about Barbarian. You all remember Barbarian, right? Huge horror movie from 2022. I know it's pretty old news at this point, so I'm not going to dissect the entire plot. If you haven't seen it, you can watch it on Disney Plus because it is good, wholesome family entertainment. But I found myself thinking about this film a lot after watching Nosferatu because it demonstrates how going to extreme lengths to ignore women never goes out of style. I'd mostly like to focus on Bill Skarsgård's character in Barbarian, which is funny because Bill Skarsgård is, of course, in Nosferatu as our Nosferatu. Bill Skarsgård, generally a creepy guy. He is, of course, best known for playing Pennywise in It, but I actually have zero thoughts about whether Pennywise is a feminist ally or not. In Barbarian, the expectation of him being a creepy guy is actually subverted, and he plays a pretty nice guy. When the film protagonist Tess shows up to her Airbnb in the middle of the night to find out it's been double booked with some random man, she assumes the worst from the situation. But Bill Skarsgård does her best to put him at ease. The problem is the end goal is not just to put her at ease, it's to put her at ease so he can hit it. He doesn't go full nice guy with a capital N and turn malicious when his advances are rejected, but no matter how many times she brings up what a weird situation this is and how she just wants to assure her safety and go to sleep, he externally validates her and then seems to think to himself, if I'm just a little more aggressive with how non-aggressive I am, she will want to hit. He doesn't take her gentle rejections at face value, and he doesn't seem to get that there are certain situations women can be put in where no matter how great a guy is, even if they might have hit it off under other circumstances, she absolutely cannot let her guard down, and boning is just not a possibility. The next day, her terrifying ordeal of having to share a space with a stranger who really wants to make small talk with her is overshadowed by Tess's next experience of locking herself in a secret tunnel in the basement of the Airbnb, where it is clear some truly heinous acts have taken place. But good news, Bill Skarsgård comes and frees her. Great. What a cute 20-minute short film. Surely from here, he will heed Tess's warnings that the vibes are off the charts in terms of rancidity, and they can leave together and get the proper authorities involved. No, he decides that Tess must be exaggerating just how creepy the situation is. He goes into the basement tunnel immediately, making Tess go back to save him, doesn't let her lead him in the right direction, and is killed. From there, of course, Tess's hell has just begun, and there are ample examples throughout the film of people not paying heed to Tess's words, whether it be trusting that she has more knowledge and a better plan than them, or simply thinking she's a deranged liar because she is a black lady in dirty clothes. Like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into Barbarian because one of my goals for this year is to talk about movies people actually care about in the year of our Lord 2025. I also want to learn to play the accordion. but I did want to display that women being ignored to disastrous consequences is a theme that still rings true, whether you're a waifish Georgian-era woman with a bad wig, or an independent woman in modern Detroit who should have stayed in a Marriott. Did I like this movie? Is a question I always forget to ask myself, and the answer is yes, I did enjoy Nosferatu, despite the Romanian musical number not being long enough. If I thought this was a bad film, then I'd be able to attribute all of the characters' infuriating behavior to bad writing. Instead, I see all of these fuckers calling this woman crazy like it's Duolingo and they don't want to lose their daily streak. And I think, yes, that is a pretty accurate depiction of people, especially people who aren't from Switzerland. But let me know what you think. Was any of this on your mind while you were watching the film, or were you too busy trying to spot the prosthetic zombie penis like a normal person? Do you think Pennywise is a feminist ally? And this is so important because my roommate Brett and I have been heavily debating it. Is it accurate to call Count Orlok Nosferatu? Or is Nosferatu kind of a creature and not a proper name? Is Nosferatu his demon name, like Beelzebub or Lucifer? Or is it kind of like calling Lucifer devil instead of Lucifer or Satan? Or is it like Pikachu, where there are different Nosferatus, but this is the Nosferatu we just call Nosferatu? If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. We are trying to get that subscriber number up for 2025, just for funsies. If I reach 100, maybe I will play you a song on the accordion. And as always, have a delicious day. That's real cold. That's cold coffee.